Sup, y'all? It's me. It's your boy Asmongold, and as a lot of you guys probably know by now, the ending for Legion has been, for the most part, datamined. So that's not to say that we know every single detail now, but it gives you a pretty clear picture on what's going to happen. So I wanted to talk with you guys about that today, and also talk about how that's going to lead us into potentially the next new expansion of Kul'Tiras. That's been, in a lot of ways, kind of leaked, and I want to talk about that in a couple of minutes, but before I do any of that, I do want to say that it goes without saying that this video is going to have a lot of spoilers in it. So if that's something that you don't want to see, you don't want to watch this video, but make sure to like it before you leave. So, anyway, let's go ahead and start. Basically, what's going to happen is that we're going over to Argus, and we're going to be attacking Antorus, the Burning Throne, I believe that's how you pronounce it, which is a way that I think that Sargeras is harnessing or using Argus, the World Soul of Argus, to fuel the Legion's machines, and we have to put the World Soul to rest. So basically what's going to happen is that at the end of Antorus, the next raid, we defeat the Argus Titan, or the Titan Soul, and Sargeras is going to come and destroy everybody, and the Titans form like a spell to imprison Sargeras inside the pantheon of the Titans with themselves, as Illidan as the jailer of Sargeras, which I think the quote here is, "Illidan serves as the Dark Titan's jailer. His sacrifice has ended the Legion. At long last, the Burning Crusade is over." So I think that's pretty cool. I feel like that's a very good ending in a lot of ways. You know, we didn't really know what was going to happen with Illidan, and also I think that kind of ending his storyline right there doesn't, it kind of closes the pathway for Illidan to become the next Thrall, right? The great guy, the huge badass that has like invincible plot armor and nothing bad can ever happen to him. And it's like, you know, the Naru came out and was talking about Illidan, and I thought they were going to play the fucking John Cena theme song. It's like, that's how they were talking about the, you know, and his name is like Illidan Stormrage. Come on. So that's kind of the way that I felt about it, and I feel like this ending right here is probably the best way that they could have handled it, and it also opens up a possibility for Illidan and Sargeras to come back in the future if there is a Void Lord themed expansion, because a lot of you guys might or might not know, Sargeras used to be like just the evil lord, basically Satan in the Warcraft universe. Then they came out with the Chronicle, and they retconned a little bit of that, and you can argue if it's retconning or just further explaining a lot of that. And Sargeras went from being, I guess if you want to use like the D&D, you know, I guess like theme, or like, I guess, the alignments, D&D alignments, he went from being like, you know, lawful, or not lawful evil, just like chaotic evil, to being maybe like lawful evil, where he just has to destroy everything, and he feels like destroying all the planets and destroying all life is the only way to stop the Void Lords, and that's why he wanted to destroy Azeroth, because Azeroth was a Titan soul, and he feels like the Void Lords can corrupt Azeroth, which is, I think, why the old gods were put on Azeroth to kind of corrupt it, because the old gods are, as far as I know, a creation of the Void Lords. So if there is a Void Lord expansion that happens, that means that Sargeras and Illidan, it does open the possibility for them to come back in the story without necessarily having them be completely involved in it going forward. So anyway, in general, as I said, I think this is a pretty good ending. Everything about it, I feel like there's a good sense of closure to the ending, and I might be a little bit misinterpreting it. I do want to emphasize that. I might be a little bit misinterpreting it. I don't think that I am to really that big of a degree, but I think one thing that we can be certain of, even if I am a little bit, is that Sargeras and Illidan will probably not be part of the game in any facility until the Void Lords become another, I guess, like more imposing presence. Which leads me into the second thing that I wanted to talk about, which is the new expansion possibilities. Now, in the most recent PTR build, along with this data mining, there were a number of items that were added to the game, or into the files, that had the same naming conventions as a lot of the leveling gear has had in the previous expansions, except for instead of Pandaria or Draenor or whatever, this time they had Kul'Tiras. So it's actually a very good possibility that Kul'Tiras is going to be the next expansion for Warcraft. So Kul'Tiras, just for a little bit of context, I'm not really going to get into it too much, but Kul'Tiras is like the home area where Jaina Proudmoore comes from, which of course would make a lot of sense because Jaina hasn't been really at all having to do with the in Legion. So it would make sense for us to kind of revisit her storyline in the next expansion. And I think also is a pretty good possibility that the old gods will be involved at the same time with like Nazoth and like Ashara and all of that. And I watched a couple of videos on this, and I've read a little bit of stuff about it, and it does seem pretty exciting. But really what I want to look at here is, I honestly, I'm going to tell you guys the truth, is that I like the lore about the game a lot, but I feel like what really matters is like how the game is actually going to work, and the systems in the game and that kind of stuff. So what I really want to see, and what I hope that they're going to do in this next expansion, is that they're going to have some sort of paradigm shift or some way to kind of broaden the horizons of the game. Right now we've got 500 mounts, like 1,500 pets, like a million different titles. Everything else in the game, like all of the rewards in the game, are in some facility or another a little bit diminished. Whenever you get your 750th pet, it's not really all that cool as getting your first 10. So what I really hope they do in Kul'Tiras is they really incorporate a lot more of seafaring and a lot more of kind of, I guess, like, what would really the word be? Just like naval stuff, I guess. I remember whenever they were talking about bringing out the shipyard for WoD, I thought maybe we'd actually be able to ride ships around, and I thought that would be really cool. But of course that didn't happen. But the idea of that, where you're riding around on your ship, sailing around, and you're blowing up whale sharks and shit, that sounds awesome. So I'd love to see them expand like the amount of rewards and the amount of content and the scope of the game by adding some sort of naval component where players can create their own ships and sail around the Seven Seas, or the South Seas, excuse me. And just for some perspective on where Kul'Tiras is, it's basically right near Tol Barad. It's right near Tol Barad and Vashir. So there's going to be plenty of areas for people to sail around on. And I really hope that they kind of expand the different types of rewards and content in the game. And also, I think a lot of people, like, going to Argus is like really, really fucking cool, right? I think it's cool. But at the same time, it is World of Warcraft, and I don't really know if them kind of going forward and just taking a completely different direction by having us go to different planets and stuff with like the spaceship with the Vindicar and all of that is really the right direction for the game. A lot of people play World of Warcraft because it has a medieval fantasy theme, and whenever you change that theme to be more sci-fi, I feel like it might alienate a lot of the original player base. Now, I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, and you could even argue that there are a lot of things in Warcraft that have been in the game for over 10-15 years, with even Warcraft 3, that allude to some sort of space travel and everything like that. But at the same time, I feel like that's the general opinion and the general I guess, like, feeling of the community, that obviously Argus is very, very cool, but I think people really want to play with swords and arrows instead of like lightsabers and lasers, and I think that's probably the way that a lot of people feel, myself included. And I think that the more that they kind of have a duality of the two things, and with like having some space stuff, but mostly having it be like on Azeroth and everything, I think that's the best way to kind of keep players happy while also expanding the horizons for the game slowly, rather than just making a complete, I guess, like paradigm shift from it being like all on Azeroth to being all on other planets. So it seems like after Argus is done, we're not really going to have much of a reason to go back there, which is a good or a bad thing depending on what your interests are. But I do feel like the South Seas, the Kul'Tiras Old God themed expansion, which is a pretty good chance on what this is going to be, can open up a lot of possibilities in making the game a little bit more expansive and making it more immersive. I remember playing, whenever I think about this, it always makes me think of the Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker. Or Wind Waker. And I hated the theme of the game. I thought it was stupid, but the idea of like sailing around to different islands, and especially whenever you'd first start playing the game, and it just seemed limitless and just amazing. I feel like if they could really incorporate that into Warcraft by having secret islands and just like a huge area where you can sail around on a ship that you create, maybe kind of like a your ship is like your new garrison or something like that. I feel like that would be really interesting, and that kind of stuff I think would really be cool for people. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but that's kind of my thinking on ending of Legion, I think it's awesome. I think it's a very, very good ending. Honestly, there's a lot of there's closure, and I think that's very good. And that's not something that we really had in Mists of Pandaria. That's not something that we had in WoD. I mean, in Cataclysm, I thought it was kind of stupid, personally. So I don't really think we've had this level of closure since maybe like Wrath of the Lich King. And so I think that's definitely a very good thing, just to have people kind of closing that chapter in the game. So anyway, Kul'Tiras next expansion, I think it could be really cool. I'm pretty excited for the idea of it, but what I'm really excited for, more so than the lore, like, oh, if we're fighting tentacles or if we're fighting, you know, anything, I don't really care. What I care about is what does that mean for me in the game? What am I going to do in the game? If I log on, what do? I don't care if I'm killing tentacles. I don't care if I'm killing boxes that are pink boxes all day. You know, I want it to be towards something. I want to feel like I'm doing it. I don't want to feel like I'm wasting my time doing it, even though obviously I am. So that's what I really hope that the new expansion can really deliver and give people, is that new type of reward, new types of things that people can achieve and do, and it just kind of expands the game in a way to where people can actually explore and I guess like be part of it in a way that I think they used to be very far back, but obviously data mining, as you guys can see, makes that a little bit more difficult now. So anyway, guys, that's pretty much my opinions, my thoughts on the leaks and the new stuff and where I think things are going to go. Is Jaina going to turn into a raid boss? At this point, probably, but we'll see. Anyways, that's pretty much all I've got. So, thanks a lot for watching, and like, comment, and subscribe.